Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. A single SOS signal. And humanity unleashed hell. First contact and the threat. The Deep Space Monitoring Station Horizon 6 floated silently in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Its massive array of receivers constantly scanned the cosmos for signals. Most days brought nothing but the gentle hum of background radiation and the occasional pulsar, but today was different. Dr. Elisa Rice stared at her display, coffee growing cold beside her, as she triple-checked the readings. The signal was faint but unmistakably artificial, a repeating pattern coming from the direction of the Lyra constellation, approximately 40 light-years away. "Curtis, come look at this," she called to her colleague. Dr. Curtis Wong floated over in the station's low gravity and peered at her screen. "Is that structured?" "Definitely not natural," Biza confirmed. "And not one of ours." Within hours, every major observatory on Earth and throughout the solar system had reoriented to confirm the signal. The United Earth government declared a Level 1 first contact scenario, and the most powerful quantum computers began working to decrypt the alien message. 3 days later, the message was translated and played before the Global Security Council in Geneva. To any civilization capable of receiving this signal, we, the Arcasians, face extinction. The hostile force known as the Void Collective has invaded our system. 3 of our colony worlds have already fallen. They consume all resources and leave nothing alive. Our defenses cannot hold much longer. If there is compassion in your hearts, please send aid. Coordinates follow. Admiral Helena Move, commander of Earth's combined fleet, studied the holographic star map showing the source of the distress call, 40 light-years away. "Even with our fastest ships, it would take nearly a month to reach them," she said. Defense Minister Omar Kateoan shook his head. "We don't even know if they still exist. This message has been traveling for 40 years, or if it's a trap," added the Chinese representative. UEG President Sophia Okafor raised her hand for silence. "What we know for certain is that there's intelligent life out there, and they've asked for our help. The question before this council is simple: do we answer?" The debate lasted for hours. Earth had unified after the climate wars 50 years earlier, and humanity had spent decades rebuilding and expanding throughout the solar system. Their military was designed for peacekeeping and defense, not interstellar warfare against an unknown enemy. "I propose a reconnaissance mission," Admiral Michaela finally suggested. "Our stealth cruiser Artemis could reach the coordinates within 3 weeks. Captain Maya Chen is our most experienced officer. She can assess the situation and report back before we commit further resources." 2 days later, Captain Maya Chen stood on the bridge of the Artemis as her crew of 20 prepared for departure. At 38, Chen had served in Earth's Navy for nearly 2 decades, but nothing in her experience had prepared her for this mission. "Final checks complete," XO Commander Jackson reported. "FTL drives charged and ready." Chen nodded, trying to hide her nervousness. "Very well. Take us out. Helm, engage FTL when ready." With a flash of displaced spacetime, the Artemis vanished from the solar system, becoming the first human vessel to journey beyond the reach of Sol's light. 3 weeks later, the Artemis emerged at the edge of the Arcasian system. Sensors immediately detected the signs of recent conflict. Debris fields orbited the outer planets, and infrared signatures of massive energy discharges lingered in space. "Life signs?" Chen asked, leaning forward in her command chair. "Detecting activity on the 3rd planet," the sensor officer replied. "And movement near the 5th planet, multiple large objects." The tactical display showed dozens of enormous vessels in orbit around what appeared to be a gas giant. Their design was unlike anything humans had conceived, an asymmetrical structure that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light, giving them a void-like appearance. "The Void Collective," Chen murmured. "Maintain stealth protocols. Take us closer to the 3rd planet." As they approached, they detected a sprawling crystalline city on the planet's surface. The architecture was organic, structures flowing together like frozen liquid, and there were survivors, the Arcasians, who moved with fluid grace, their skin shimmering with bioluminescence. "They're still fighting," Jackson said with awe in his voice. Chen made her decision. "Open a tight beam communication channel. Let's introduce ourselves." First contact with the Arcasians was cautious but rapidly became urgent as the aliens explained their situation. The Void Collective had appeared 2 years earlier, systematically harvesting entire planets of resources and leaving nothing but barren rock. The Arcasians, a species that had evolved remarkable biotechnology but few weapons, had been fighting a losing battle. "Your arrival gives us hope," the Arcasian leader, Illuminator T-Lise, told Chen via the translation system. "But I fear you do not understand the nature of our enemy." The Arcasians transferred data files showing the Void Collective in action. Chen and her crew watched in horror as swarms of black ships surrounded planets, deploying devices that stripped them layer by layer, converting all matter into energy that the ships absorbed. "They are not organic, as we understand it," T-Lise explained. "They appear to be self-replicating machines with a hive consciousness. Their only directive seems to be consumption and expansion." "How many worlds have they taken?" Chen asked. 7 in our territory, T-Lise replied. "But we have detected signals suggesting they have consumed hundreds more beyond our borders. We may be just the latest in a long line of victims." Dr. Patel, Chen's science officer, analyzed the Arcasian defenses. "Their biotechnology is remarkable. They've engineered living weapons that use photosynthesis to power energy cannons, but they're simply overwhelmed by the collective's numbers." For 3 days, the Artemis gathered intelligence, carefully avoiding detection by the Void Collective vessels. The Arcasians shared everything they knew, including detailed scans of the enemy ships and their harvesting technology. "They'll move against our home world within days," T-Lise warned. "When it falls, the last of our species will be extinct." Chen knew she had to return to Earth with this information, but her conscience rebelled at the thought of abandoning these people. "We'll send a message to Earth immediately requesting reinforcements," she promised T-Lise as the Artemis prepared to depart. Disaster struck when one of the Void Collective vessels detected their transmission and altered course to intercept. Evasive maneuvers, Chen ordered as the massive alien ship bore down on them. The Artemis banked hard, its engines straining as the black vessel fired an energy-draining beam. "Shields failing," Jackson reported. "FTL drive at 60%, Jackson continued. Chen made a split-second decision. "Divert all power to weapons. Target their propulsion system." The Artemis fired its full arsenal of quantum torpedoes. The explosion temporarily blinded their sensors, but when the view cleared, the void vessel was still coming, damaged but rapidly repairing itself. "FTL, now or never," Chen shouted. The Artemis jumped just as another energy beam lashed out, catching their stern. The ship tumbled into FTL space, damaged but alive. As emergency repairs began, Chen gathered her senior officers in the briefing room. "We've confirmed several things," she said grimly. "The Arcasians are real, they're facing extinction, and the Void Collective is more dangerous than we could have imagined." Dr. Patel displayed his analysis based on the data they'd gathered. "The Collective has the technology to eventually reach Earth. It might take them decades, or centuries, but they will come. It's not just about helping the Arcasians," Jackson said, "it's about our own survival, too." Chen nodded. "The question is whether Earth will understand that before it's too late." 2 weeks later, the damaged Artemis limped into Earth orbit. Chen was immediately summoned to Geneva, where she presented her findings to the Global Security Council. The chamber fell silent as they watched the Arcasian data showing entire planets being systematically consumed. "The Void Collective currently has no knowledge of Earth," Chen concluded, "but if they finish with the Arcasians, they'll continue expanding. It's only a matter of time before they find us." President Okafor looked around at the grim faces of Earth's leaders. "The choice before us is clear: do we wait here and build our defenses, hoping they never find us, or do we take the fight to them now, while we have potential allies who understand their weaknesses? Defense Minister Ken, who had initially opposed intervention, spoke up. Captain Chen, based on your assessment, do we have any chance of defeating this enemy? Chen considered carefully before answering. The collective has superior technology in many areas, but they seem to lack tactical flexibility. They're powerful but predictable. Combined with Arcasian biotechnology, our different approach to warfare might create advantages they won't expect. Admiral Mike Hullov added, the Arcasians' living ships could potentially be integrated with our weapons technology. It would require unprecedented cooperation, but the potential is there. As evening fell over Geneva, President Okafor called for a vote. One by one, Earth's representatives cast their ballots. The result was unanimous. Earth will stand with the Arcasians, Okafor announced. Admiral Hullov turned to Chen. Captain Chen, you will lead the advance force back to Arcasian space to coordinate our response. Chen stood at attention. Madam President, given the threat we face, I recommend Operation Full Force. We commit everything we have. Okafor nodded grimly. The fate of 2 species now depended on them. Humanity went full force. The shipyards of Earth, Mars, and the moons of Jupiter had never seen activity like this. What would normally take years was being accomplished in weeks. Every industrial facility in the solar system had been converted to war production. Civilian vessels were being retrofitted with military hardware. Research labs worked around the clock developing hybrid weapons that combined human engineering with Arcasian biotechnology. Aboard the newly commissioned flagship Defender, Admiral Hullov stood in the observation lounge, watching as hundreds of ships assembled in Earth orbit. Astonishing what we can do when we stop fighting each other, remarked General Kagawa of the Marine Corps, who had joined her. The question is whether it will be enough, Mike replied. The tactical displays showed 300 combat vessels of various classes plus support ships, carriers loaded with fighter craft, and troop transports, representing nearly 80% of humanity's military capacity, with only a skeleton defense force remaining behind to protect Earth. Captain Chen approached, looking both exhausted and energized. Admiral, the final shipment of bioreactive material has been loaded on the support vessels, Chen reported. Dr. Patel believes we can synthesize more once we reach Arcasian space, assuming any of their bioengineering facilities remain intact. Mike nodded. And the prototype weapons? The Stardust missiles have been tested successfully, Chen said. They combine our fusion warheads with Arcasian Bofuton multiplication technology. One missile can split into thousands of micro-projectiles, each carrying enough energy to damage void collective hulls. General Kagawa looked impressed. And you believe the Arcasians can integrate these with their defenses if we get there in time? Exactly. 3 days later, the Earth fleet departed the solar system in a carefully coordinated FTL jump sequence. The journey would take 3 weeks, 3 weeks during which they could only hope the Arcasians were still holding out. Aboard the Defender, Admiral Hullov addressed the fleet. Her image appeared on screens throughout every vessel. Men and women of Earth, we embark today on humanity's greatest journey. For the first time, we go to war not against each other, but to defend another sentient species. The Void Collective thinks it can consume worlds without consequences. Today, they will learn that the universe has teeth. Throughout the long voyage, the fleet drilled constantly. Ground forces practiced in massive simulators, preparing for combat on alien terrain. Engineers fine-tuned the experimental weapons. Intelligence officers studied every frame of footage from the Arcasians' data, looking for weaknesses in the Void Collective's operations. Captain Chen spent most of her time in the tactical center with the Joint Chiefs, developing what they called Chaos Doctrine, combat strategies designed to confuse the highly ordered, predictable patterns of the collective. They operate like a perfect machine, she explained. Every action is optimized for efficiency, but machines struggle with genuine randomness and seemingly irrational actions. In the ship's lab, Dr. Patel made a breakthrough. The collective ships appear to communicate using quantum entanglement, he announced. That's why we can't detect their communications, but it also means they're vulnerable to quantum disruption. Working frantically, the science team repurposed the ship's QE communicators into disruptors that could potentially interfere with the collective's coordination. When the fleet finally emerged from FTL at the edge of Arcasian space, they immediately detected signs of ongoing battle around the home world. Dozens of Void collective vessels surrounded the planet, methodically breaking through the last defensive satellite network. Status of the planet? Admiral Hullov demanded. Life signs detected on the surface, concentrated in the capital region, the sensor officer reported. It appears the Arcasians have created some kind of protective dome using their biotechnology. Chen studied the tactical display. They're still fighting, but that dome won't last more than a few days. Mike made her decision. All ships, battle formation Delta. Launch stealth reconnaissance drones. I want detailed scans of every collective vessel before we engage. For 6 hours, the Earth fleet gathered intelligence while remaining outside the collective sensor range. The drones revealed that the enemy had committed significant forces to the Arcasian home world, nearly 80 vessels of various sizes, all with the same void-like appearance that absorbed rather than reflected light. In the strategy room, the Admiral and her commanders finalized their plan. The collective maintains rigid, predictable formations, Chen pointed out. They position their harvester ships behind a screen of defensive vessels. If we can disrupt their coordination with the quantum interference and then hit them from multiple vectors simultaneously, they won't know how to respond. Mike finished her thought. Very well. Prepare all ships for combat operations, and send a tight beam message to the surface, let the Arcasians know help has arrived. The first phase of the battle began with complete surprise. 20 stealth frigates slipped behind the collective formation and launched their quantum disruptors, creating waves of interference that temporarily severed the enemy's instantaneous communications. Simultaneously, human fighters swarmed from carrier ships, targeting the collective sensor arrays with precision strikes. Aboard the lead collective vessel, the Hive coordinator experienced something it had never known: confusion. Its perfect battle network fragmented into isolated nodes, each suddenly forced to make decisions without access to the collective intelligence. All ships, engage, Admiral Hullov ordered, and the main Earth fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. What followed was chaos by design. Instead of meeting the collective in standard formation, Earth vessels attacked in seemingly random patterns, constantly changing vectors and targets. Fighter squadrons darted between capital ships, drawing enemy fire before larger vessels struck from unexpected angles. Group 7, execute the Thunderbird maneuver, Chen called from her tactical station. A squadron of destroyers suddenly reversed course, appearing to retreat only to launch their experimental Stardust missiles from optimal range. The missiles detonated between the collective vessels, each warhead split into thousands of bioengineered microprojectiles that disrupted the molecular bonds of the enemy ships. Direct hits on multiple targets, the weapons officer reported. Critical damage on 3 enemy vessels. But the collective was far from defeated. As their communications gradually recovered, they began adapting to human tactics. Their largest vessel, a dreadnought nearly 2 kilometers long, moved to the front of the formation and unleashed devastating energy beams that sliced through 3 human cruisers like paper. All ships, evasive pattern Omega, Hullov ordered. Focus fire on that dreadnought. The battle had just entered its second hour when sensors detected new movement from the planet's surface. Dozens of crystalline vessels, the last Arcasian defense fleet thought destroyed weeks earlier, rose through the atmosphere and joined the battle with perfect coordination. They transmitted directly to our fleet, Chen realized. We have received your weapons designs. Our ships have been modified accordingly. Let us fight together. The tide turned rapidly. The Arcasian vessels moved with incredible agility, their living ships capable of maneuvers that would kill human crews from the forces they generated. They darted between collective vessels, drawing fire while Earth ships delivered devastating blows with conventional and hybrid weapons. In the command center of the Arcasian Defense Dome, Illuminator T. Lise watched the battle unfold with a mixture of hope and disbelief. They came, he whispered to his advisors. Humans actually came. On the Defender's bridge, Admiral Holov ordered the deployment of their secret weapon, massive EMP generators combined with Arcasian Bofuton technology, designed to overload the collective's energy absorption systems. All Arcasian vessels, clear Sector 5, she commanded. Fire in 30 seconds. When the enhanced electromagnetic burst detonated, it created a ripple effect through the nearest collective ships. Their hulls, designed to absorb energy, suddenly found themselves overwhelmed as the pulse forced their systems into feedback loops. 3 vessels imploded, and 5 more drifted, their systems paralyzed. All ships, concentrate fire on disabled targets, Mike ordered. The battle raged for another 4 hours as the combined human-Arcasian fleet methodically dismantled the collective forces. Victory came at a heavy cost, 22 Earth vessels destroyed, 39 severely damaged, and thousands of lives lost. But as the last collective ship attempted to flee and was cut down by pursuing Arcasian cruisers, a cheer erupted throughout the fleet. 2 days later, Captain Chen stood beside Admiral Holov in the Grand Hall of the Arcasian capital. Illuminator Teles formally welcomed them. The crystalline chamber was filled with both species, humans in their uniforms and atmospheric suits, and the tall, graceful Arcasians with their shimmering skin. For generations, we believed ourselves alone in facing the darkness, Teles said, his translated words echoing through the hall. We had given up hope when your small ship appeared. Even then, we dared not believe you would return with such force. Admiral Holov stepped forward. The Void Collective threatens all life, not just the Arcasian people. Today marks only the beginning of our resistance. Chen observed the gathering with a sense of wonder. Human and Arcasian scientists were already deep in conversation, sharing knowledge and technology. Medical teams from both species worked together to treat the wounded. What had begun as a military alliance was rapidly evolving into something more profound. They will return, Teles warned later as he showed Chen and Mike detailed star charts. This was merely an expeditionary force. Our long-range probes have detected hundreds more collective vessels in distant sectors. They'll be ready, Chen replied. And we won't be alone. Messages had already been dispatched to Earth requesting additional ships and resources for a permanent defensive presence in Arcasian space. Plans were being drawn up for joint research facilities and integrated command structures. 3 months later, Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly established Lyra station, a massive platform orbiting the Arcasian homeworld. Below, the planet was recovering. Its crystal cities gleamed in the light of 3 suns. In orbit, a combined fleet of human and Arcasian vessels maintained vigilant watch. Admiral Holov joined her, looking out at the stars. The collective's main fleet has altered course, Mike noted. They're avoiding this sector entirely, for now. Yes, Chen replied, but word is spreading. 3 other species have made contact, seeking alliance against the collective. It seems we've started something here. Chen smiled slightly. When we received that distress call, we never imagined it would lead to this. That's the thing about humanity, Holov said. We never know our true strength until we're tested, in deep space, far beyond the Arcasian system. The collective's prime coordinator processed the unexpected defeat. In millennia of expansion, no species had ever mounted such effective resistance. The tactical data was troubling. These humans fought unlike any civilization the collective had encountered, with a combination of technology, adaptability, and what could only be described as unpredictably intuitive, new directives propagated through the collective consciousness. The immediate harvesting plans for that sector were suspended. More data was required before engaging these humans again. For the first time in its existence, the Void Collective had encountered a species that gave it pause. Encounters with human vessels were to be carefully documented, their home system must be located, their weaknesses identified. But for now, the collective would pursue easier harvests elsewhere while studying this new enemy. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible, not as conquerors or victims, but as defenders of life against the encroaching void. In doing so, they had changed the course of galactic history. As Chen looked out at the stars, she wondered what other civilizations might be watching, learning that when pushed to their limits, humans didn't just fight back, they went full force. In the weeks that followed, Lyra Station became the beating heart of a burgeoning interstellar alliance. Human and Arcasian engineers worked side by side beneath luminescent domes, melding fusion reactors with biolatticed power conduits. Every corridor echoed with a dozen languages, Earth's tongues mingling with Thylas's Arcasian dialects and the nascent speech patterns of newly contacted species. Together, they drafted a charter for the Coalition for Life, pledging shared resources, mutual defense, and the pursuit of scientific knowledge to safeguard every world from the Void Collective scourge. Captain Chen found herself at the center of it all, shuttling between strategy sessions and engineering bays. She oversaw the first joint training exercises, human Marines learning to pilot living Arcasian dreadnoughts as Arcasian pilots adapted to Earth-made fighter crafts. Tactical officers analyzed battle data from the Lyra engagement, refining chaos doctrine to a science so precise it felt like art. Yet for all the planning, a new urgency pulsed beneath every decision. Each passing cycle brought whispers of the collectives regrouping in the outer sectors. On the planet's surface, the Arcasians began reconstructing their crystalline cities. Where shattered spires once lay, young saplings of living crystal sprouted, intertwining with human-grown trees to form hybrids that glowed softly under 3 suns. Medical teams instituted the first coalition hospitals, where human doctors learned to harness Arcasian regenerative therapies and Arcasian healers marveled at human prosthetic advancements. Survivors of the siege of Thyron wept openly at seeing their homes reborn, while Earth diplomats documented every miracle for the Coalition's archives. Meanwhile, deep space scouts reported anomalies along the fringes of the Zeta Reticuli sector. Sensor blips, too uniform to be natural, danced at the edge of detection, suggesting that the Void Collective had already begun probing other territories. Admiral Hullov convened a special council aboard the Defender, urging that reconnaissance and rapid response squadrons be assembled. "We have won a great victory," she told them, "but the war is far from over. Every world we save is a beacon, every beacon the collective extinguishes is a warning. We must move faster than they can consume." In Geneva, Earth's Global Security Council ratified the Coalition's charter and authorized full military cooperation. President Okafor addressed a joint session with calm resolve. "We have seen what happens when light is extinguished. Today, we choose to shine together. Let this alliance be the first of many, so that no civilization faces the void alone again." Her words were broadcast to every coalition outpost, igniting celebrations on Mars's Olympus Mons colony and in the sky cities of Titan alike. On Lyra Station's observation deck, Chen and Illuminator Teely stood side by side once more. Below them, the combined fleet, now nearly twice its original size, glowed like constellations in orbit. "Do you ever wonder," Telis asked, "what other eyes are watching us?" Chen smiled, the weight of command momentarily lifting from her shoulders. "I think they're seeing something they never imagined," she replied. "A universe where hope fights back." Together, they watched as the first coalition vessels slipped into FTL, bound for distant sectors, carrying humanity's promise beyond the stars.